not feeling good enough can show up in a lot of ways, like lack of motivation, procrastination, feelings of hopelessness. And sometimes we don't even know that we're carrying around this feeling of inadequacy until we have to face it when we decide to make a change in our lives. I don't know a single person who has never had a feeling of not being good enough. So the question is, what can we do when this feeling comes up? How can we move through it and come to a place where we can truly thrive? To show us how, we are speaking to Mary Ayers from tapintoaction.com. Let me tell you a bit about Mary. Mary has a PhD and is internationally recognized as a solution-focused EFT practitioner, author, and speaker. Her professional background includes 3 decades as a licensed psychotherapist, as well as 5 years with the Anthony Robbins organization as a coach. She has counseled thousands of clients, helping them break through emotional barriers, freeing them from the fears and anxieties that keep their life small, and then teaches them how to install the inner resources that lead to happiness, contentment, and success. Sign me up. I'm so thrilled to speak with her. Welcome, Mary.
Oh, thanks, Jess. It's always a pleasure.
It really is. I love speaking to you, and I always love to start to hear about why, as a trained psychotherapist with a successful practice, you decided to incorporate tapping.
Well, it wasn't always that way. When I it was 10 years I was in practice before I even discovered tapping, and that was in 97. And it actually kind of found me more than I found it. So being a little out of the box type of a therapist, I was used to using some innovative types of techniques, and it really piqued my interest. But when I really started to bring that into sessions with clients and I watched them shift faster. Talk therapy, most therapists use what we would call, more of a talk therapy type of way, which is great for insights. It gives us an appreciation, a perspective of where we've come and maybe some of the ways that we're behaving and some change. But one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't address what's happening in the body. And what's happening in the body is actually coming from the subconscious part of us because it's where we're holding all of our programs, all of that habit of feelings, of believing and whatnot. And you can't get through it through the conscious mind because we need something that works on the body. And so for me, it was a perfect marriage to be able to put a cognitive aspect with a body felt aspect and bring those two together. And then we were really setting up the system for deep change, long lasting change that both changed us on a level within our body and that old programming, as well as our more cognitive day to day rational mind as well. And over the past 20 years, I've really watched that play out. I've seen change happen. I've seen people notice changes. I've seen their family comment to them on changes that they've seen. I have to tell you, during those first 10 years, I didn't hear that as much as when we combine them. So I am sold, and I really believe that it's a perfect way to go about making the changes you want to make.
It really is. And I'm so happy to talk about this topic because when you feel like you're not good enough, you can feel really alone when it's such a common belief. I think one of the challenges with a belief like this is someone who feels like they're not good enough. They're not saying, oh, I have a belief that I'm not good enough. They're saying, no, this is the truth. I am not good enough. It feels very real. So for someone who's new to this concept and who really has the feeling like, I just don't feel good enough, how do you explain what a belief is?
A belief is really the simple answer on that is it's just a thought that we have affirmed over and over and over, and that it's become now a truth that we are living. So most of the beliefs that we've got, really we picked up in childhood. And the thing is that we don't really, when we don't know what they are, we just keep living through them. And when we do that, we've almost stunted our growth, even though cognitively, even though logically we know that we may want to feel enough. What I love about that body approach is that we say, yeah, but do you feel it in your body? Does your old programming, is it congruent with what your mind is saying, I am enough? And that's part of this work. That's what makes it so powerful is that we can really hold those two things up against each other and really see what our body responds to and what is true for our body in our beliefs. But really, how do we find these beliefs? Because after all, if they're in the subconscious part of our brain, how are we supposed to even know what beliefs we're working with? Well, I like to do just kind of a really simple question. There's a long and in-depth ways of exploring your beliefs, but really, quite frankly, I found that a very simple question will really help people see what it is they're believing really fast. And the question is just simply this: what would you have to be believing or saying to yourself to feel the way you're feeling? So I'll give you an example from my own life. I have this, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to relate to this right now, right? You text somebody on your phone and they don't get back to you right away. And you're thinking to yourself, I've seen them with their phone. I see them checking their phone all the time. I know they saw my text, right? And then you start feeling, okay, now I feel bad. I'm starting to feel bad. If I ask myself that question, and this really happened for me, I had to explore this. I had to ask myself, okay, now what would I have to be believing in order to feel this way? Of course, the answer is that, well, I have to believe that they think, you're not significant enough for me to answer to. I can put you off. It doesn't really matter. I don't believe you matter. And so when you hear that, you start to hear what is underneath what you're feeling, what beliefs you're really working from. So I could hear well, you don't think I'm enough. You don't think I matter. That's why you're not answering my text. And of course, that's, not the truth, but it's what I feel because it's coming from a belief. And so then, you're able to work on that. Now I could actually not even be worried about when those texts come in.
Right.
And you get that freedom.
Yeah, and then sometimes a text comes in and the person's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I feel overwhelmed." And you realize it had nothing to do with you. I've been in the exact same
Oh,
situation.
and you've done a number on yourself because in the
Yeah,
meantime, while you are going, "Oh gosh, look, I really don't matter," and so you are just your whole system is just feeling like junk. And to only find out that somebody was like, "Oh, left my phone, it the battery ran out," or whatever it is.
right. I mentioned in the beginning that this feeling of not being good enough can show up in different ways. I mentioned lack of motivation and fear. Are there some other symptoms to this belief? Because sometimes it's easier to see the symptoms. That's what we're focusing on. We kind of obsess over, oh, I've been procrastinating. There's something wrong with me without maybe looking deeper as to what's causing those symptoms. What are some other symptoms that tend to happen for people who are really living this belief of like, I just don't feel good enough?
It really shows up in so many ways. I mean, it could be, being a people pleaser, having to get other people's approval before you do things. It can be procrastination. One, it can be part of overeating. You know, um, shame. It's not wanting to show up, afraid to put yourself out there. Uh, I see it a lot in social anxiety. So just in our being around other people and feeling like, I don't measure up to people. It shows up in imposter syndrome. I mean, it's almost easier to say how many places it does show up. It's how do I know that that is a not enough belief? And the interesting thing about it is what you start to notice is that there's a signature feeling when you're feeling not enough. So if you go back to that question of, well, how am I feeling? And what would I have to be believing to feel this way? Next thing you know, you're going, oh, geez, this is that I'm not enough thing. And that's when you start to now connect it to all these different things that you're doing is to kind of come back. You go, oh, this is it again. I can feel it. This is how I feel when I'm feeling not enough, and when that's being activated.
Yeah. I'm so happy you bring up that point because it's been a huge part of my journey that instead of thinking like, okay, you tap on something and then you're never going to feel it again and life is perfect, We know that life is complex, and as we grow, there are moments that we are against some resistance, some of our own resistance, and this belief of like, am I good enough to do this? Am I good enough to deserve this? Can peak up. And it's not saying, oh my God, I'm broken, I need fixing. It's going, oh, look, I'm doing that thing. This is the thing I do when I'm scared. Or this is the belief that I am so good at because I spent so many years thinking it that, of course, okay, here it is. And you take away some of that shame around it and that feeling of, oh no, there's something that really wrong. You just know it's part of growing that we have to bump against these things.
Yeah, it's such a habit, like you were saying, is that that's what it just does it so automatically. And where we get empowered is once we see it, it's kind of like we're become witness to it, and it's like, hey, I think I know what this is. Then we can break that pattern. And that's what the tapping does, is it helps us break the pattern that has been established over years, just kind of scratch it. Does it mean that it won't come back? Of course not. We just mentioned about 5 or 10 different ways that it can show up. And people, we're not aware, well, that could be acting here, and it could be acting in my career, and it could be acting in my relationships and my friendships, all these different ways. Then when we become aware, we are able to target what we need to work on. That's always a conversation with tapping. What is my target? And sometimes you'll hear people say, "Oh, there's so many things to tap on." And I go, "Be prepared to be surprised." Okay? You may have different, narratives, different events that have happened where you felt that enough so intensely that you're remembering that event, but know that it is still the same root belief. And that's what we're after. We are really about changing that root belief, not just fixing all the times it happened, but changing it at a deeper level.
Yeah. And it's so hard to be aware of these beliefs and have that reflection when we're in that state of, oh my goodness, they haven't texted me back. Or just when the emotions are so high, it's impossible to do that reflection, which is why I love tapping. I think I'm actually answering the question I'm about to ask you, but I want to hear from you. Why tapping? Why, what are the ways that we can use tapping when it comes to these beliefs?
You know, Obviously, it's like we said, there's a little historic part of the time something happened. And we all know that it's perfect for tapping that, because that is a moment where we were really charged with those feelings of not enough. I mean, it blew up, and our whole body lit up with that feeling of not enough, not mattering, not being cared for. And so that's, to be able to tap on that particular instant is great, because when we take it out, we kind of pluck it out, deactivate it. That's one less experience that we have of it. But the nice thing is that when we work more at the root, we're really being able to it's like it lasers out. It affects in all areas, and so you start to see it within your life as a whole, not just in segments and whatnot. And that's a massive shift. I mean, that's a paradigm shift for us to be able to do that. Um, Tapping, what I know it does is because we're resistant to change. Not When people say you're, resistant to change, they think like it's a voluntary type of thing. I'm gonna resist it. Really, we're actually engineered to not be easily changed. It's just the way we are, because we need to have some consistency in our life.
Feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't get up every day and be somebody new. This day you decide, you'd forget you had children, you'd leave them behind. I mean, it's a survival thing that we know that we have this routine and that we need to maintain these habits. We get that. But one of the things that I find with tapping, and this is my way of explaining it too, is that this barrier that we have that says, I can't change, this is who I am. When we tap, we take the tension down. And when the tension comes down, we are more pliable. We're more open to seeing something different. We're open to a different viewpoint of who we are, how the world is. And so what I love about it is it helps us to enter into a state of receptivity to a change we want to be making. Okay?
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
No, it is, and it makes complete sense. It's like once we let the pressure go, we're feeling more in our body, we're able to then have that idea or think positively. I mean, it's so hard to be feeling in your body physically hopeless. It's a physical feeling. You're slouching and all of a sudden someone comes with like a motivational saying and you want to punch them in the face. Like, yeah, there's no place to land. It's the most irritating thing. But when we do the tapping first, then when we are feeling calm and we say, everything I need is within me. I am capable. It's like there's a place for that to land. And I think that's the problem is we try to jump so fast to just hyping ourselves up and it feels fake because we haven't addressed how we're feeling and honored it and let go of that charge so that we're more pliable. I love the way that you explain that. Yes. So with that, Mary, we're gonna do a lot of tapping. I want to do some tapping and tapping
Absolutely.
experience. Anything else to share before we go into our tapping?
The one thing I like to tell people about this when they start to do this work about I am enough is to recognize it takes time. We're imprinting something. It's not a drive-by, I think I'll do a little bit of I am enough tapping. We are imprinting, we are making deep change, and it's something you want to come back to time and time again. I really, for myself, I did an experiment about and said, I'm going to do this work. I'm going to tap every day until I am at a consistent. For me, it was a 10 because when I want to install a belief, I measure it how believable it is to me. So a 0 is it's not believable at all, it's not the truth, and 10 it is the truth, okay? So I wanted to be at a 10, a solid 10, and I said, "I don't care how many days it takes, I'm going to do it every day until that happens." For me, it took 90 days, 90 consecutive days. And so I'd let people know that. Don't be surprised if when you're doing this work, you feel pushback, all of a sudden you're too tired, you're too busy, you forgot, all these things are that internal system that says you're doing things that are making change and I'm going to kind of push back on you because I want familiar. And so having a regular practice, and it doesn't have to be every day, it was what I did, but I tell people at least 3 times a week, pick a number, stick to it, and just come back and keep applying yourself. You just keep tapping and tapping to the same thing. That's perfectly okay. You can do some different ones, but it's the fact that you're just presenting your mind on a regular basis with it. So with that, the best place to start is really with an I am enough. Just that statement of I am enough. And like I said, I like to measure how true it feels. So if you say it, I am enough, and then you're measuring how true it feels. 0 is not true at all. 10 is, I've got this. And we're not talking in the head, we're talking in the body. How does it feel in the body? Okay? And take note of that number. All right, and then let's do some tapping. You up for it, Jess?
I am always up for some tapping. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Karate chop, right? Even though for the longest time, I've had this voice inside my head that tells me
I've had this voice inside of my head that tells me
I am not enough.
I am not enough.
And now I choose to relax
And now I choose to relax
and open myself up to new possibilities.
and open myself up to new possibilities.
Even though this voice tells me
Even though this voice tells me
that I shouldn't accept myself.
that I shouldn't accept myself.
It tells me I can't accept myself
It tells me I can't accept myself
because I'm not enough.
because I'm not enough.
Yet I choose to recognize
Yet I choose to recognize
that voice is not telling me the truth.
that voice is not telling me the truth.
Even though I've had this voice in my head
even though I've had this voice in my head
telling me these things for so long,
telling me these things for so long,
that it must be true
that it must be true
because it points out all my flaws,
because it points out all of my flaws,
all those things that make me not enough.
all those things that make me not enough.
I choose to be open to the possibility
I choose to be open to the possibility
that I can be acceptable
that I can be acceptable
and enough
and enough,
just as I am.
just as I am.
And so we'll go to the eyebrow, okay? This voice in my head tells me I am not enough.
This voice in my head tells me I am not enough.
So how could I possibly be acceptable? Side of the eye, sorry. So how could I possibly be acceptable?
So how could I possibly be acceptable?
Under the eye, it tells me I have flaws.
It tells me I have flaws.
Under the nose, it compares me to others.
It compares me to others.
On the chin, it says I am different.
It says I am different,
Collarbone, that I am lacking.
that I am lacking,
Under the arm, that I don't measure up.
that I don't measure up,
Top of the head, that I am too much.
that I am too much.
Back at the eyebrow, it says that I can't be acceptable.
It says that I can't be acceptable
Side of the eye, until I'm different.
until I'm different.
Under the eye, it tells me when I achieve some goal.
It tells me when I achieve some goals
Under the nose, or when I lose this weight.
or when I lose this weight
On the chin, or when I have these results.
or when I have these results.
On the collarbone, then I will be acceptable.
Then I will be acceptable.
Under the arm, yet no matter what I do.
Yet no matter what I do,
Top of the head, it is never enough.
it is never enough.
Eyebrow, but what if it's possible?
But what if it's possible
Side of the eye, that I've always been acceptable.
that I've always been acceptable?
Under the eye, what if I was embracing?
What if I was embracing
Under the nose, what makes me me?
what makes me me?
Chin, what if I was noticing?
What if I was noticing
Collarbone, the things about me I enjoy.
the things about me that I enjoy?
Under the arm, what if I was accepting?
What if I was accepting
Top of the head, that I am already enough.
that I am already enough?
Eyebrow, the beautiful essence of who I am.
The beautiful essence of who I am.
Side of the eye, this unique and imperfectly perfect human being.
This unique and imperfectly perfect human being
Under the eye, that has always been worthy of being loved.
that has always been worthy of being loved.
Under the nose, being accepted.
Being accepted
Chin, by me.
by me.
Collarbone, what would it be like to give myself permission?
What would it be like to give myself permission
Under arm, to embrace who I am.
to embrace who I am,
Top of the head, flaws and all.
flaws and all?
Back at the eyebrow, what differences would I notice?
What differences would I notice
Side of the eye, when I was beginning to be accepting of myself.
when I was beginning to be accepting of myself?
Under the eye, not when, but right now.
Not when, but right now.
Under the nose, and in that kind and loving inner environment.
And in that kind and loving inner environment,
Chin, I started to bloom.
I started to bloom.
Collarbone, what if I became my own sunshine?
What if I became my own sunshine?
Under the arm, my own best champion.
My own best champion.
Top of the head, owning my worth.
Owning my worth.
Eyebrow, I create a safe place within me.
I'd create a safe place within me
Side of the eye, where I am wanted for being me.
where I am wanted for being me.
Under the eye, embracing who I am without conditions.
Embracing who I am without conditions.
Under the nose, I am enough.
I am enough.
Chin, even with quirks and imperfections.
even with quirks and imperfections.
Collarbone. I choose to accept my radiant self.
I choose to accept my radiant self.
Under the arm. I am worthy of this acceptance.
I am worthy of this acceptance.
Top of the head. I am enough.
I am enough.
Take a breath. And of course, say it again. Make the comment that, I am enough. Feel it in the body.
Mm. What would you say to someone who's having some tears?
That that's what nurturing yourself feels like. That's
Yeah.
what it begins to say, wow, could that really be possible? You know, even with best of parents, we pick up a little bit of this. We live in a society that, that we learn it as kids. And that's heartbreaking to us, right? Because we've got these beautiful little kids in our life, my grandchild, your kids, and we see them light up and be so happy with everything they do. And then we kind of watch it get layered, get a little dirty, get a little, hidden and whatnot. And when we feel that joy back within us, like we touch back into it, it can be breathtaking. It can bring tears. It can almost feel unreal because it's not familiar to us. But that's what we're doing. We're making it familiar to our body. And when that happens, then we get to live in it.
You said something really interesting during the tapping, which you brought up this belief of I'll feel good enough when I'm successful, when I lose weight. And I actually was listening to a podcast last week, and the host is very successful, and he was saying the great thing about having so much success and made so much money is, he said, as someone who struggled with self-esteem and with addiction, I used to always blame my self-worth because I hadn't made it yet. And the gift of making it and being successful was that I realized that my feelings of not being good enough had nothing to do with my actual success. He was able to go, okay, the feelings of being good enough don't come with success like we think. Like, if I could only do this, or if I could only lose this weight, then I'd be happy. Sometimes people get to that, well, a lot of times people get to that place, and when they don't do that inner work, they go, wow, wow, I lost weight and I still don't feel good in my body. Wow, I made more money and I still don't feel like I'm enough. External things won't fix this feeling.
Yeah, because it's coming from a place of being inadequate.
Mhm.
As opposed, so that drive to do something is coming to fix something as opposed to just becoming more. When we say I am enough, we're not saying we are perfect. We're just saying that I'm accepting myself unconditionally. Now, anything I do to add to that is more of an expression of me. It really then highlights who I am.
Mhm.
Very different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to put this in the workbook so people can come back to this tapping as many times as they want, easy access. And you mentioned earlier that, you did it for 90 days to really feel a shift. So I hope that if this really resonated with people, that they commit to doing this. Start with a week. You don't have to start with 90 days, but can you really commit to some consecutive days of doing this work? Something else that I'm curious about is sometimes you get to the place where you feel better. This happens to me all the time. And then something happens. You're doing great. You're feeling good enough. And something happens. And suddenly that feeling comes up. And you're like, oh, here it is again. What do we do in those moments when we're kind of surprised by it and maybe a little disappointed that it's coming up again?
Oh, absolutely. And I tell people, you need to have a recovery plan. That is just the
Mhm.
truth of it because life is going to send us triggers. I will tell people the number one thing that can put us in a more vulnerable place to have, to fall into that old thing is you're going to recognize it as soon as I say it, being tired. Lack of sleep makes us so vulnerable to, our mind doesn't have the strength. Sometimes we just feel like I can't get my energy up. I can't think the good thought. It's so much easier to do path of least resistance, right? The one that's been practiced over and over and over and over again. I don't have to give it much attention in order to be able to go into that old story. So being tired, and I tell people, if you just even looking at that, we were talking about what would I have to be believing in order to feel this way? Oh, I get it. This is the familiar feeling. It's that. But be kind to yourself. You know what? I am really tired right now. Or I am really stressed. This is happening or that's happening. I go, when you cut yourself some slack, then when you come back to do your recovery tapping, you're doing it out of love. You're doing it out of finding that space where you were before, to go back to that grounded sense of being enough. We wobbled, now I wanna get back. I wanna get balanced again.
Yeah. I think sometimes what's nice about talk therapy is that when someone paints the picture back to you of what you've gone through, what you've been going through, then it's easier to be like, oh, I'm tired. Or
Yeah.
the power of journaling, of just sitting down and writing what's going on. You can have some self compassion and go, oh, I can see what's happening here. Because when you're in it and you're just tired and you're having this belief, you're not taking that step back and going, wow, I'm not sleeping well. And wow, I'm dealing with a lot of things. It's so hard to have that self-awareness when we're so in a feeling, which is why I love that we can always start with the tapping first to then have that awareness and have a bit more compassion.
The statement you're making is kind of goes back to the first question you asked me is, why as a therapist would I take this on? And I go, because that awareness alone didn't change the body. But
Mhm.
when I am tapping, and because I'm tense and you're holding yourself tightly because you're protecting yourself, and your fight or flight center is kind of, gearing up to say, something's wrong. I don't feel really good. I'm starting to feel really bad about myself. When we bring that awareness, I'm tired, I see where I'm at, and we do our tapping, I bring that softness into my body, and then I'm able to recapture that belief that I do know. I'm able to find it again and sink back into it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about triggers for a second. Do you find that with your clients that there's a common trigger that can bring up this feeling?
You know, I would say the number one, and there's a lot of different things. People can, like we were talking about the text, type of thing. There are a lot of things that can trigger us. Knowing your triggers is very, very helpful because one, you can protect yourself. Like for some people, it's going on Facebook and seeing all the things that people are doing and immediately starting to feel, I'm left out, I've been left behind, I don't matter. We can do that. So if you know that that's a trigger for you, that we try to stay away from it. But you know what? We can't stay away from everything that's a trigger for us. And what we really want to do is be able to not be triggered. And that is when you change your belief, these things won't be triggering you. I think one of the top ones that I see and hear mostly from my clients has been comparing themselves to other people, right? That is just a landmine of what you of triggering and rich with feelings of I am not enough. Because all you have to do is look at somebody doing something that you're not doing, um, that you value, and the first thought is that, look, they're better than I am, which means I'm not doing enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not important enough. I mean, all those enough statements just fall down right in front of you. And it's so easy to do with comparing. It's just,
Oh, yeah. You're sleep deprived and you're on your phone and you're just looking at everybody else. It's like a perfect storm, of course. Who's gonna
oh,
feel good? Oh, yeah, I'm not sleeping well, being off, and now you're comparing yourself to somebody else's perfect photo. You're comparing your moment to somebody else's best moment and what they're willing to share.
oh,
It is a formula for disaster.
and we what do? We go to comfort ourselves, right? And then so people are like, "Oh, then I ate something and then I feel bad," or that, and I go, even stuff like that, it's coming from my sense of not enough that got triggered. You're
Mm.
just trying to soothe yourself and make yourself feel better, which really doesn't do it, and we all know that. But the point is that, you know, I am not enough as a common denominator in feeling bad. And no matter how you're feeling, it's probably in there somewhere. So
Yeah.
let's do some tapping on this comparison thing because I think that that is something that most people can really relate to, and it's good to have what do I do when that happens?
Please. Yes, this is perfect.
All right. So, I mean, for people right now, it's just kind of see how they feel. You can think about just anything, somebody who had a success, somebody who had a party, is talking about something great that happened to them. You don't have to, you know that you've felt it before, and probably just even thinking about how it felt before is a good enough to be able to recognize in your body. We want to break that up. We want to just kind of keep slicing it away so that that feeling in your body is learning to be disrupted and not
Mhm.
really, getting its claws into you. So think about that now, comparing yourself with somebody else. We're going to start on the karate chop. Okay. Even though I feel so inadequate when I can compare myself to others,
Even though I feel so inadequate when I compare myself to others,
I'm willing to be open
I'm willing to be open.
to learning how to see the good in me.
I'm willing to see the good in me.
Even though I feel terrible when I compare myself to others,
Even though I feel terrible when I compare myself to others,
I see all the things they do and have,
I see all the things they do and have,
and it triggers my not enough feeling.
and it triggers my not enough feeling.
I know this pattern,
I know this pattern,
and I'm open to finding a way
and I'm open to finding a way
to love and accept myself.
to love and accept myself.
Even though I'm always comparing myself to others,
Even though I'm always comparing myself to others,
I tell myself
I tell myself
that they have it really together.
that they have it really together.
They must have something I don't.
They must have something I don't.
I must not be smart enough
I must not be smart enough
or disciplined enough.
or disciplined enough.
I must not be enough.
I must not be enough.
But that's not the truth.
But that's not the truth.
And at the eyebrow, when I compare myself to others,
When I compare myself to others,
side of the eye, I always fall short.
I always fall short.
Under the eye, it makes me want to hide.
It makes me want to hide.
Under the nose, because no matter how hard I try,
Because no matter how hard I try,
chin, I can never be like them.
I can never be like them.
Collarbone, when I compare myself to other people,
When I compare myself to other people,
under the arm, it makes me feel less than.
it makes me feel less than.
Top of the head, but it's not my truth.
But it's not my truth.
Eyebrow, the truth is I am enough.
The truth is that I am enough.
Side of the eye, and when I compare myself to others,
And when I compare myself to others,
under the eye, I forget who I am.
I forget who I am.
Under the nose, I forget that I matter.
I forget that I matter.
On the chin, I forget that I am worthy.
I forget that I am worthy.
Collarbone, it's time for me to remember.
It's time for me to remember
Under the arm, the truth I was born with.
the truth that I was born with,
Top of the head, that I am enough.
that I am enough.
Eyebrow, I claim my enoughness.
I claim my enoughness.
Side of the eye, I am ready to embrace myself.
I am ready to embrace myself
Under the eye, and delight in the things that make me me.
and to delight in the things that make me me.
Under the nose, not a perfect me.
Not a perfect me,
Chin, not a mistake-free me.
not a mistake-free me,
Collarbone, but a me that is real.
but a me that is real,
Under the arm, with ups and downs.
with ups and downs,
Top of the head, with highs and lows.
with highs and lows.
Eyebrow, I am enough no matter what.
I am enough no matter what.
Side of the eye, I came into this world already enough.
I came into this world already enough.
Under the eye, I may choose to become more.
I may choose to become more,
Under the nose, and when I do,
and when I do,
chin, it will be to express more of who I am.
it'll be to express more of who I am,
Collarbone, not from a place of being insufficient.
not from a place of being insufficient,
Under the arm, but as an expression of who I am.
but as an expression of who I am,
Top of the head, a loving and whole being.
a loving and whole being.
eyebrow. So I let go of this comparison to others.
So I let go of this comparison to others.
Side of the eye. I see the possibilities that exist for me.
I see the possibilities that exist for me here.
Under the eye, because they are perfectly aligned with who I am.
Because they're perfectly aligned with who I am.
Under the nose. I am the best person to be me.
I am the best person to be me.
Chin. I am already enough.
I am already enough.
Collarbone. I am worthy and deserving of good things.
I am worthy and deserving of good things.
Under the arm. And I give myself permission to accept them.
And I give myself permission to accept them.
Top of the head. I am enough.
I am enough.
And take that breath. One thing I really want people to do is when they feel that shift in their body, just even any kind of a lighter, take a moment to savor it. Okay? We want to remember what it feels like. We want to memorize this because what we do is that when we have an experience that hurts or jars us or, it's painful, we review it and run it over and over in our mind multiple times. And that's how it gets so embedded into us, right? That feeling, that knowing. When something good happens for us, it feels light, it feels feathery. And we don't tend to savor it to give ourselves a chance to remember it so we can recall it. And so anytime we're feeling just a little bit better, tell people, savor that. Just breathe it in so you can call it up anytime you want it. Let it be your friend.
I love that. That was such good tapping and something to just come back to all the time because we know when we're going to that place. We know when we're spiraling and we're comparing and oh my goodness, it was so good. It actually, I was tapping because so as some people know that I have a 7-month-old baby and I don't sleep. Like I am up most of the night and I've been awake since 4 o'clock this morning. And there are some, sorry?
For 7 months.
For 7 months. For 7 months, I haven't slept. And there's moms, I was just talking to our producer behind the scenes and we had a meeting and I was looking kind of tired and I was like, I've been awake since 4. And then I said to her, I know moms who just never, it just seems to never phase them. They never tell anyone they're tired. They just kind of like go on, they accept it. And I like always show up being like, I'm so tired. I woke up like 3 times. And then I get it together. But I'm very transparent. Like I can't fake it. Right? Like I will admit how I'm feeling. And point of sharing that is that I was doing this comparison of like, oh, why am I not the kind of person who just can be better at not sleeping? Why can't I just be cool with it instead of, feeling tired and then having to tell people that I'm tired? It sounds like a little thing, but the only reason I bring it up is because this is what we do. We have this experience and we compare it and we go, "Oh, I know this other mom and she never complains about being woken up." And and then we think, "Oh, well, what does that mean about me? There must be something wrong or I don't do it good enough because I'm not doing it the same way." And it happens like all of the time and it could be a different area of our lives. It's important to recognize and go, "Oh, I'm doing that thing in this area." And I think it's lifelong. I think it kinda creeps up on us sometimes.
Yeah. And it wears so many faces. Yeah. And so your awareness that in that point, it's like, man, how many times did I do that today? You may have only said once about, about the sleep thing, but when we compare ourselves to people in other ways, we are really bombarding our system with that message over and, oh, here's another way you're not enough, and here's another way you're not enough, and here's another way
Yeah.
you're not enough. We want to scratch that old pattern so that it just doesn't play as well. I know that the metaphor of scratching the record is probably so ancient, it's up there with castles and dragons, but I'm just saying it's true. We need to disrupt it so it can't play the same way all the time. And catching it is important. And of course, changing the pattern in our body and embedding, imprinting that newer pattern is when we really make the big shift.
I love it. You said something earlier that really stood out, which is we all need a recovery plan. Like, there's always going to be those moments that we get caught up with this feeling. So, what's our recovery plan? Can you talk a bit about that and can we do some tapping around that?
Absolutely. Life happens. New things happen. It's not just even our past that kind of revisits us, although, that old belief kind of is a thread that goes through it all, at that common denominator. But we can get jarred by just anything because we're human. And other people in our lives are human, and they may be having their own moment, and we got in the swirly of it. Okay. And all of a sudden we find ourselves being off kilter again. What I do find with recovery is that it's when you've been doing your work. If you're a newbie to I am enough, probably coming back to just I am enough because you really want to embed that is where you want to go. But the more you work with it, it's part of the forgiveness and the acceptance process that we have to just recognize I am off course. I need to get back on course. When I did I involved my whole list in an experiment a year ago about, I am enough, and I introduced this recovery tapping to them. I got so many emails from them letting me know, oh my gosh, it's thank you, because I didn't realize that it was acceptable that could be for this to happen, that it was something that could happen and that it was okay and I'm still okay and whatnot. So I think it's one that I really wanted to put out there because I think it's one that we all need to have in our pocket. It's a resource that we want to be able to get through. And really, I mean, you don't have to, we're going to go through the tapping. You may not feel that you are off course right now. Tap anyway. This is just a good one to kind of anchor you back in when you're tired. It's just like, what do I need today? I'm just going to do that. I'm just half asleep. I'm going to go ahead and do it anyhow.
Yeah, the little pick me up, get me back, get me centered again.
Yeah, we're going to get Jess all kind of picked up now. Let's get so on the karate chop, okay? Even though something triggered me,
Even though something triggered me,
and now I feel not enough.
and now I feel not enough.
Again,
I
choose to know I am okay,
choose to know that I'm okay,
and I am safe.
and I am safe.
Even though those old feelings are really rattling me.
Even though those old feelings are really rattling me.
I thought I was past this.
I thought I was past this.
I choose to accept myself.
I choose to accept myself.
Even in this mini crisis.
Even in this mini crisis.
Even though right now I don't feel enough.
Even though right now I don't feel enough.
I've forgotten it.
I've forgotten it.
I can't find that feeling.
I can't find that feeling.
I choose to remember.
I choose to remember
that I am always enough.
I am always enough.
I've always been enough.
I've always been enough.
And there's a part of me that knows that truth.
And there's a part of me that knows that truth.
Let's go to the eyebrow. I don't feel enough right now.
I don't feel like enough right now.
Side of the eye. I got triggered.
I got triggered.
Under the eye. And I can't find that feeling.
And I can't find that feeling.
Under the nose. I choose to remember.
I choose to remember.
On the chin. That I am enough.
That I am enough.
And that there's a part of me that knows that.
And there's a part of me that knows that.
Back at, under the arm. Even though I've got that old familiar feeling again.
Even though I have that old familiar feeling again.
Top of the head. And it makes me sad.
And it makes me sad.
Back at the eyebrow. Because I thought I was past this.
Because I thought I was past this.
Side of the eye. Maybe it didn't work.
Maybe it didn't work.
Under the eye. Those old feelings are back.
Those old feelings are back.
Under the nose. I feel lost and discouraged. Excuse me.
I feel lost and discouraged again.
Chin. But what if it's still there?
So what if it's still there?
Collarbone. What if sometimes things happen?
What if sometimes things happen
under the arm and you lose your way?
and you lose your way?
You top of the head, you get confused.
You get confused.
At the eyebrow, you momentarily forget.
You momentarily forget.
Side of the eye, for just a little while.
For just a little while.
Under the eye, you get separated from the knowing.
You get separated from the knowing.
Under the nose, that I am enough.
That I am enough.
Chin, this is an old pattern.
This is an old pattern.
Collarbone, that got reactivated.
That got reactivated.
Under the arm, an old way of thinking.
An old way of thinking.
Top of the head, perhaps I can turn it around.
Perhaps I can turn it around.
Eyebrow, and find my way back.
And find my way back.
Side of the eye, to what I know is my truth.
To what I know is my truth.
Under the eye, that I am enough.
That I am enough.
Under the nose, that this lost and confused feeling.
That this lost and confused feeling.
Chin, is only temporary.
Is only temporary.
Collarbone, because I could never turn my back on the truth.
Because I could never turn my back on the truth.
Under the arm, that I am enough.
That I am enough.
Top of the head, and I always will be.
And I always will be.
Eyebrow, even when things happen that shake me up.
Even when things happen that shake me up.
Side of the eye, that triggers some old response.
That triggers some old response.
Under the eye, my enoughness is always there.
My enoughness is always there.
Under the nose, it never leaves me.
It never leaves me.
Chin, it calls me back home.
It calls me back home.
Collarbone, again and again.
Again and again.
Under the arm, you are enough.
You are enough.
Top of the head, you matter.
You matter.
And just sit at the collarbone for a second. I am enough.
I am enough.
I matter.
I matter.
I remember this truth.
I remember this truth.
I have always been.
I have always been.
And I always will be.
And I always will be.
Enough.
Enough.
Big breath.
It's like a spa day for my emotions.
It's just that, again, it's what comes is the coming back down into your body, not being out here in the world where everything can be distracting. It brings you back here, back into your heart.
I love that. I love that you've given us such an amazing framework of when we're new to start with the basics, to do that, even if it takes 90 days, but be consistent. And then as we're moving forward, we have the rescue kit that we can come back to. We could go to our workbook and go, okay, I need a little rescuing. And that's okay. It's okay to have those moments when you just need that little pick me up, that little moment to remember what you know is true.
To be reconnected.
Yes. So powerful. Mary, this has been truly wonderful, a gift that you have given us. I want to thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom?
I just love looking at you right now. You're so bright. You can tell that, just doing this, it's like, oh, sleep.
I feel so much better.
My one thing I would tell people is to be willing to give the time, to make the commitment. It doesn't matter how long. This will be life-changing for you. That one belief, of all the many things you can think to believe, this one belief truly will be life-changing for you.
Mary, thank you so much.
Absolutely.